So I did some thinking and got some telepathic messages, and it looks like I wasn't sold into the MK Ultra sex trafficking or into the MK Ultra program. I might have been government property, which we all are apparently at birth, is what I heard. And it's a social experiment. And David is not an NPC. I was getting transmission that he possibly was, but I know David and he's not an NPC. He has a soul. I'm pretty positive. I'm hoping. I'm hearing that he does because I talk to the souls and the dead and everyone. So I'm going to continue again with chapter 20 because I keep getting interrupted or my computer keeps dying. So I will continue. Chapter 20. I had a dream I was at my family's home. There were a bunch of mentally disabled people congregating on my lawn, and they just kept coming. There was a barbecue going on, and they kept flooding in from the streets. I looked up in the trees, and there were these spiders, bright blue and orange in color, in pods dangling from the branches. The sun began to go down, and the pods began to open. I went inside the house and found insecticide underneath the sink. As they came out, I sprayed all of them, and they shriveled up. None of these people on my property knew the better of the situation, but I sprayed every last pod and saved the day. I decided to make a Discord. I was blocked from making one. Ran Man, who said they worked on the Jordan Peterson server, showed up to help me. I wondered why someone would try... Why someone would try and help me who helped someone famous like Jordan Peterson. I sent him some of the screenshots I took from Oogle.com and asked if he knew anything about it. He got spooked and blocked me. I found pictures of Jordan Peterson as a lobster person and posted screenshots of the conversation. I later would hear that the lobster people were incredibly intelligent, and Jordan Peterson would come to me to talk sometimes as a lobster-human hybrid. I was home when I entered the Illuminati heavens, as David would drop me off home for Sunday dinners and leave me there. Even though I had said Lucifer was living in the basement. He could be everywhere I was, but for some reason when I was in the house, I was even sicker and was barely ever able to leave, as I would fall ill when I was supposed to go somewhere, unless it was to meet a man. The Illuminati heavens had a diamond 3D shape that reminded me of the Hellraiser box. It seemed to quell them. I think the famous celebrities were the Cenobites, and that configuration kept them docile in a different form. There were libraries where books would read to you and paintings that talked to you. Mirrors as well, with the same capacity. I ran into Stockard Channing at first. I put my arm next to her head, leaned into her as my white goddess dress fell. My breast was exposed, and I told her, just because you all have unrequited love with the children isn't an excuse to do what you do. It's not about unrequited love, it's about child sacrifice. The pedophilia, I don't believe it's about unrequited love. It might have began as something like that. But Gaia, this Gaia from the Denki dimension is absolutely bothering me right now to get me to stop reading my book. It's this telepathy, having universal consciousness, and the programming and everything is incredibly irritating. John Goodman and Matthew Modine showed up, and I reprimanded them. I didn't start off destroying their world and making my own. But it certainly ended up that way. I wondered whether people learned in the Masonry to astral project or if I was just seeing the souls. They do, I believe, in the Masonic levels. They learn astral projection and wizard stuff, witchcraft, all sorts of means of functioning on the astral plane. The administration began targeting children in our world blatantly. Gavin Newsom passed Senate Bill 145 in California, which allows an adult within 10 years of age of a 14-year-old to perform sodomy on them, an attempt at making pedophilia normal. As well, the Democrats are pushing for trans rights for children. They want to make big pharma customers for life out of them. In some places, you can actually have your child taken away for not listening to their trans rhetoric. As well, they are pushing for having trans in women's sports. No biological male should be competing with women anywhere. It just shouldn't be happening. Anyone with male genitalia should not be using the female's restroom, and anyone with female genitalia should not be using the male's restroom or locker room. To be fair, I think there should be a unisex bathroom as well as a girls' and boys' room, everywhere for trans people, for anyone to use. There have been some instances of men, trans women with male genitalia, exposing themselves in female locker rooms and such. In the case that the person doesn't have the correct genitalia for the correct locker room, that should cover the problem. Project Bluebeam is planned for the near future. The government plans to unite everyone due to a fake alien invasion. They will use holograms in order for our eyes to betray us. There will be a false god that will come down, like the return of Jesus, that will push people into the New World Order. They also, I think this is also like trying to get people to give their souls up to Lucifer or give themselves, because Jesus was Lucifer. Remember the Georgia Guidestones? On the stones, the New World Order was outlined. I believe they blew them up because there was a star portal located there. There's also star portals. Apparently, like, Saddam Hussein had something like a star portal or a Stargate, something like that. Project Fishbowl is the business with the firmament. There is supposedly a firmament around Earth that doesn't allow us to go into space. I'm not quite sure about this because David once mentioned nuclear weapons being shot out of space by aliens when sent up by us. In the case that there is a firmament, we never went to the moon. I decided to look into exorcisms. I found a reputable frequency exorcist right away. He was based out of California. He told me that I would be able to save some souls that were trapped in hell. He also said it would agitate the demons. He was a magi in a former life. The magi could see into my consciousness colors that I was seeing. I sprouted wings during the initial frequency testing, he said. They were beautiful. Big white wings that were golden towards the end. I could see them as well. He played different frequencies that were meant to expel the demons from my body. I received a sword in the astral plane while I was getting the exorcism. I dipped it down into hell and the souls jumped on. They went from being reddish black to being bluish white in color. Everything looked like a cartoon on the astral to me. I felt good about myself afterwards, but the demons didn't. It didn't get rid of them, it only angered them. I saw myself on the astral plane, a large entity. There were other Earths, but I kept crushing things and knocking beings over. Orsini had a spell book, and I mistakenly asked for his help. Or they made me, because mind control can... Like, I wasn't of my free will. He made me small, replicated me, and sent me out into the universe. I was shifting between being big and small and couldn't control it. Brock showed up to marry me. Orsini was on this high bench on the left side, and there were a bunch of people there. I wasn't able to say no. David said that I was professing my love for Brock in the back room. Nothing could have been further from the truth at the time. I was very in love with David. I don't really remember it, as I was in a possessed state again. Orsini married us, and Brock became a huge like me. My family was there, and my dad showed up asking my mom, "Am I too late?" A window opened up that showed my family with Brock, as he felt he was a new member to the family. He had always told me he wanted to meet my father, although my father wasn't wasn't keen on me being with him at all. We were in a different dimension. He eventually got up and knocked over one of my family members. He didn't seem to care at all. I divorced and annulled our marriage immediately. I don't know what came over me. In fact, I do, possession, but I asked Lucifer to create with me. I didn't ask him to have sex with me, and that's not what we were doing. I just wanted him to watch me create and learn to be good. All the different species were coming out of me, and then when he left me, I had my legs open in the astral and was spitting out only sneakers into the universe. He wanted me to think I needed him to create, which couldn't be farther from the truth, as I created him in the beginning of time, alone. They made me do a lot of crazy, it's mind control. You can't, it's absolutely unbelievable. Then out of nowhere, versions of him kept spouting out from between my legs. I had guns in my hands and started shooting him. They were coming so fast I couldn't possibly stop all of them. I heard Brock eradication protocol, and a bunch of interstellar police agents started killing off all the Brocks. It was just like an episode of Rick and Morty. He showed up in a window with a female demon. He said, "I've got my own Katie Gaia." She certainly wasn't a virgin of me. She was red-skinned with horns and wore a skimpy purple dress. He fucked her in front of me in hopes of making me jealous. That night I saw the universe in the astral. I don't know if I was being controlled by someone else, but one of the planets blew up. Words ran across the screen. "Are you an evil god?" I was certainly not, but whatever was inside me felt like it wanted destruction. I didn't want to play the game. I just wanted to preserve everything. I personally am all for peace, and whatever was running this program was very destructive. I had reached some level of godship, and it seems it was designed like a game. They showed me pictures of people I loved and shot at them. I started picturing the elites, and the system wasn't fast enough to switch up the program. They started shooting them. I was trying to outsmart the machine. They started shooting upwards at this big pink mass, and someone said it was Gaia. My past lives were all lined up from head to toe vertically in my body. I saw guns pointed out at the universe. Then I saw aerosol spray cans spraying green toxins into the universe. I tried to stop it, but I couldn't. Those were not my past lives. It was just a vision. It clipped to earth before me. I had a weapon that looked like a massive cannon coming from me. It shot a huge bomb out of it and hit earth directly in the middle. I saw bombs going off all over the universe. It scrolled N times on the screen. I wasn't supposed to smoke, a stream told me. I grabbed my vaporizer and started puffing away. I was terrified by what I had just seen, and my blood ran cold. In the forefront of my vision was Brock inside a skull that was meant to be mine before me. Gaia started shooting the cannon at him and dumping water in the eye cavity he was in. He was drowning, and the cannon was hitting the skull, but not damaging it. He was just feeling the blows. I was angry. Gaia had taken over that cannon, the cannon that was shooting at him over and over again. I eventually fell asleep, but woke up to two fortunes lying on the floor next to me, and I had picked up the Mary Magdalene story instead of the Eve story. The Eve story had me writing a book and becoming famous for it. The Mary Magdalene story had me being crucified repeatedly, ending up destitute on the streets. I eventually just in my brain chose the God story because that's who I am, the goddess, or the goddess story. I didn't choose any of their options. I woke up barely able to breathe, as it felt like my lungs had been flooded with mucus. I heard Gaia was dying, but I wasn't sure what to believe. I saw myself walking up a white stairwell. A god came up to me. He grabbed my breast and said, "I want you clean." It totally creeped me out, but it was a demigod. But I followed him up to a white room where there was an ascension board. I got on it and began shape-shifting into an eagle amongst other beings. I couldn't stop shape-shifting. This was actually an image where my whole family was there, and Brock was with them. So there's demon programming and everything, and unfortunately I've had to deal with things in my family with the family, with everyone, with this demon programming. It's been very difficult. But I think that's what that was symbolic of. I couldn't stop shapeshifting. Above my head it read True God. I didn't know why I couldn't ascend. Another window opened up and had all my friends from TikTok on it. They invited me to ascend with them, and I hopped through to their ascension board. The same thing happened. I couldn't ascend. I then saw myself rolled around in hellfire by two people close to me that wanted me medicated in two old hells and windows beneath where I tried to ascend. I also saw myself like as a tiny speck, feeling all the pain of like all the suffering in hell, like burning. Like I saw some horrible shit. Like it goes beyond that. I started seeing my followers in windows saying they're coming for you. I saw masses of people headed towards David's house. The Mary Magdalene story seemed to be unfolding. Brock was heading them up with poster boards full of naked pictures I had sent him. They said I had blocked their ascension. They came from all different dimensions. Somewhere an apocalypse had already been triggered, I thought, and they needed someone to blame. I was meant to save them. Their Earths had apparently become chaos. In a vision in another dimension, they stormed the apartment, and David began throwing me to them in some clips. It kept happening over and over again, and then in the vision, David began beating me in front of them before they took me away. I'm sure it is blasphemy to some of you that Mother Nature, or should I say the true God, would send naked pictures to Lucifer, or naked pictures at all. But that's how it went down in end times, where media is running our lives. They mind controlled me into sending a lot of pictures at certain points. It's not something I ever did for a very long time. I didn't even have a smartphone. And like once I got a smartphone, the programming, whatever, and meeting Brock, like it was something that I had never done before. And so it was something to do with the programming. It was like it upped the programming. I saw myself getting strung up on a telephone post, being beaten and raped with broken bottles. I don't die the same as normal people, and it had taken me 28 days to expire on the cross. 28 days later. All the police stations and hospitals had locked their doors and wouldn't allow me in. These people, I saw myself being raped by with like a dead cat, like things that were, it was absolutely vicious. The mobs eventually died down and the streets were silent. I was sitting alone, beaten against a wall, when a man came up to me and slit my wrists for me. He wanted to free me of my pain, and I saw myself bleeding out. I'm hearing that didn't happen. They were just visions that they planted in my brain. But it was absolutely horrible and terrifying. And I was very scared. And I looked out the window at one point, and in my head I saw the mobs coming for me, and it was in like this with my third eye, like on a different plane. Like I saw, it was just, I didn't see them like physically, but yeah, you saw it in your head. In another dimension, David and Grace had been getting payouts for a Black Mirror-like scenario where my life was being streamed to other dimensions. There was a show called Gaia and Me on one dimension. On another, it was called Growing Up Gaia. On another, it was Getting Up with Gaia. All of the planets who had fallen into bad situations had believed that the reason for their woes were because of my smoking. Or so I thought. That's what they tried to make me think. There were so many different versions of Earth, I couldn't have told you which ones they were. There were sadistic versions of Earth, where everyone was a sadist. An empathic Earth, a genius Earth, a dumb Earth, the possibilities were endless, but all that fell into turmoil had come for me on this dimension. I feel like I was told actually right now we're in like Fool's Land. I think it's Dimension 9, but there's all different levels, planes, all different stuff. I heard we're in Dimension 9, which is Fool's Land. I would find out later that it wasn't my smoking that had caused anything. I could smoke prior to an ascension and have no problem ascending the beings. I just shouldn't being Mother Nature. There were ascensions periodically, and it was the most beautiful experience in the world. All the souls ascend with Earth, and the visuals are extraordinary. There are planets and the souls all soaring through the cosmos. What unfolded was a mob scene of people who were convinced that my smoking kept them from ascending, and that was why their planets were in disarray. As I smoke, because it didn't actually do anything. It was all just false visions. That day there was another judgment at play. I heard a court case starting up between Lucifer and I. The judge was a woman, and I kept trying to tell my story, and Lucifer kept changing the story around. The stories played out in my head, and when I was explaining that I was raped in the garden, Lucifer showed me liking it. He kept asking me to marry him and cursing me exponentially with all sorts of symbols, included when I said no. Lucifer, as Brock, tried to convince me that he was going to protect me against an even larger entity. He called him his dad. I think he was talking about Satan, but in reality, I believe Satan is just an extension of Lucifer, an alter ego. I saw myself in a hole beneath the ground with Lucifer and Satan and tunnels leading to that hole. Demons were funneling in to rape me with swords, bats, and spikes on them, blades, etc. Satan was the most brutal, and I saw myself awaiting their judgment of me, which wasn't right. Why should they have the right to judge me? It's because normal people damn conspiracy theorists. They ignore them and write them off as crazy people and go about their everyday lives. There hasn't been a rebellion in ages because people are compliant in everything they do. Compliance is law is part of maritime law, and instead of standing up for yourselves and your planet, people value money. A construct created by fallen angels to control you. I later found out there's compliance chips, and I think they chip you for compliance at birth with like the measles, mumps, and rubella vaccination. They were judging me because people allowed them to get into these positions with their lack of good judgment. My own poor judgment when getting the COVID shots was part of it as well. I wasn't allowed to like leave the house, and I stayed in for an entire year, and I just couldn't take it anymore, and I finally got them. If conspiracy theories were more mainstreamed, this would have been exposed sooner, and I never would have gotten the shots. I went over to sit on the bed, which was just a mattress on the ground. I started seeing Cenobites and machines running with pieces of what I assumed was supposed to be me in them. This was what hell had become, just machinery. There were no old-fashioned tortures anymore. The machines tortured you, and the Cenobites just kept turning them up. There were electrocution chambers where I saw a pair of lungs and pieces of meat being sliced through with razor wire. The bits of meat looked digitized, even pixelated, because of how fast the machines ran. The Cenobites were terrifying, and there was just more and more levels of worse, more disgusting ones administering worse and worse tortures. Arenas full of them just watching in pleasure. I became a duck at one point, and Orsini came out, many Orsinis. The duck is associated with prosperity, love, peace, spirituality, and harmony. They came up to me to talk, and I just kept snapping their necks with my beak. I tried to stop, as I imagined I was burying myself deeper, but couldn't stop. They seemed to have different versions of me as well. I was desperately trying to free myself from this hell, but once I got out of what looked like islands of hell, I would just jump back in again. The Cenobites were worse and worse levels of pedophiles on islands. Draw enough parallel for you? So this is like reptilians, alpha reptilians, draconians, and alpha draconians. I think they look like Cenobites. That's what they seem to come to me as. That's what your celebrities and all these people actually look like. Their souls actually look like. That's their true form. I went to shower and they started cursing for me for every step I took. Every sip of water I took, I was cursed more and more. I tried to go in the shower, but they continued, and it scared the piss out of me. I eventually went over to the sink in a possessed state and grabbed a dull knife. David came up to me as I was doing it. I saw myself about to try and saw through my wrist and this dull blade when he decided to take me home. The whole ride I was quiet and stuck in this trance. I pictured myself stopping at a convenience store and chugging Drano. I kept saying I was fallen and Lucifer kept damning me. When I got home, They're absolutely going, like, the messaging to get me to stop reading is so intense right now. I had the real parasite. I think that got expelled from me. But, like, the messaging going through my head to get me to stop reading and to keep me from finishing this book. And this is what happened, like, when I was writing the book, it was bad as well. So some pieces are a little bit, like, the grammar isn't perfect and, like, the stuff isn't perfect, but I did the best I could. When I got home, I said nothing and went up to my room. One demon was trying to convince me the Lake of Fire was a beautiful place where I would dance for everyone and everyone desired me. I saw what it truly was, a pit of acid where there was a seated machine made of sharp objects and razor wire that was to go through my eyes, a sword that was to go in and out of my vagina, and acid that burned exponentially as they cursed it more and more. They tried to convince me to agree to going to hell and being placed on this thing. I denied the offer and they cursed me even more. Next, I saw a screen with all the planets aligned on it. It began running through all of them to get to the hells. I didn't mean to, but I couldn't control it. The hells seemed to have a shell on them, and I couldn't get through. I was upstairs when Lucifer tried to convince me that he had the angels feeling bad for him, and one came forward to be his bride because I wouldn't. He was crying hysterically, and I saw the angels comforting him. Which wouldn't have happened. As I said, you must decipher the codes, the fake news, and even in your head. Some of what you're getting may be pure bullshit with a bunch of Nazis running a machine that can make you see what they want you to see and hear, while you're getting messages that need to be deciphered from your spirit guides. He was trying to make me jealous and succumb to his demands. I was sitting in the living room when they offered me Drano. I am constantly under mind control, and for some reason I said yes because I'm under mind control. Or yes came through me, even though it wasn't me. My head was then opened up, like my skull. I saw my skull open up, and Drano was poured into my skull. I felt it immediately coursing through my veins. My brain had filled up with Drano, and I was drowning in it. I could feel the thickness of the fluid coursing through me. That night, another wedding ensued. I saw what looked like the heavens on the left side, which was usually the desolate place. I was to marry Jesus, who was Lucifer. I couldn't say no again. I ended up being placed in a wintry landscape on the right side, where I was chained to a tree. There was a woman with Lucifer. She was blonde, tall, and skinny. She had chosen the Eve story and was to take my place. I sat in my bed, and a golden seed fell into my hand. It was Lucifer's. I dumped it. Then a little bluish-white seed fell into my hand. I thought it was God's seed, and I rubbed it on myself. Grace reached into me from another dimension on the astral plane, grabbed the baby, which looked like it looked like a virus, kind of, like the way they're spiky, like a circle with all these, like, little things with, like, suctions on the end came out, like an organism. It didn't, maybe not a virus, but an organism, and dragged it into her dimension. She had my baby, which I called him Michael Gaia, in a different dimension where her and David had 2 other sons. At one point, she was at a funeral and tried to grab me to get me to join her because David was unhappy, and so was Michael Gaia. The astral plane began to close, and physically I couldn't jump dimensions like that. The astral plane looked like a crosshatch of dimensions overlapping each other. It closed up and I saw a sunset in the distance. I started making my own version of it, as Earth is the keeper of the astral plane, I think. It is. I drew a crosshatch within a circle in the air, desperate to keep it. I saw Brock and he tried to exchange brains with me. They said reversal, and our brains seemed to exchange. I let go of his brain and I saw my mother and my father's brain enter my head. My head kept opening up and freeing the brains. I couldn't control it. Brock's brain began to melt into a pile of sludge inside his skull. It was because of the Drano. He tried to take, like, mine and my consciousness or whatever, or my brain. I heard there were hitmen being deployed, 3 of them. There were interdimensional agents with Orsini. I woke up to Orsini crouched in my room on the floor with what looked like a silencer. I was relatively dark, but I always slept with the hall light on. He looked me directly in the eyes. It wasn't his human form, and he looked a bit transparent. He pointed the gun at me, but couldn't shoot. He stared into my eyes and just couldn't do it. I have the eyes of like the spirit of a child, so when you really look into my eyes, there's just pure innocence. So, like, if you look, I have these big brown eyes, and it's purity, the lotus flower. The next day, I spent all day on the astral plane, still in a possessed state. It seemed like I was destroying it just by being on it. I was a mermaid who was swimming through, erasing it. I saw the generals and government people watching me. I gave everyone the middle finger. The demons broke through the astral plane because there was only a thin, breakable wall behind what I was destroying. They looked like all black cartoon bats. I heard someone say the astral plane is closed for reconstruction. The next thing I knew, I was in the kitchen surrounded by demons. I was at the bottom of what looked like a pit in a desolate place. They were all staring at me, judging me. Satan came up behind me, and I felt his weight. My chest and shoulders felt heavy. My soul felt weighed down. He said to me, "I don't like rejection," and asked me to be his. I said no. The damnations poured in. Even a male god joined in on damning me. The male gods, or demigods, were typical white male, large, muscular upper body, long white beard and mustache. I always got somewhat convinced there was someone above me in the god department during these possessions and got scared. Because it was just constant judgment. And that's what these people do. These people in positions of power, they just judge people. They constantly judge people, and they test you and test you and test you, and that's what this is. It's a program to test your brain to see if you go absolutely insane. They try and make you look insane. They try and get you admitted. They try and get you into psych wards to stay. This is all part of a program. And when this comes out, like, psych wards will be eradicated, and there will be spiritual rehabilitation in its place. Spiritual rehabilitation, therapy, and learning annexes, because that's what Earth is supposed to be, a learning annex. And you're supposed to learn how to be better. And you were supposed to go to heaven when you died and see God. And God was supposed to tell you what you did wrong and you were supposed to learn. But this reptilian harvest moon shit with the fake light, the fake reincarnation, whatever, that put you, I heard, I'm not sure if it put you in a machine or what it did, but they chose the bodies. You didn't get to learn. You never got to learn. Brock was there and claimed to be Satan's son. Brock as Lucifer hid in the chimney the whole time. I still had some sort of affinity for him and was supposed to fly off to New Eden with him. I had heard from David previously that I wasn't on the roster for New Eden. I thought I had an affinity for him. This was all just programmed in. Something drew me outside, and I looked up to see a boat full of angels. I heard ascension is nigh. I also saw people in the clouds, and I was a little baby that floated up towards them. I kept ascending past all the gods in the clouds. I kept popping in, and they sent me away. I wanted to know my judgment. I was still so terrified. I saw a series of doors shut on me, and a talisman was dropped down. It was a harp that was supposed to differentiate good from evil. I went into the kitchen and held up the talisman. The harp turned black, but there was a beautiful white light around it. I walked the demons outside to where the boat was, and Brock was on it. I heard Grace and David on each of my shoulders. She said, "Watch this. This is where she fucks up." David seemed upset by the entire situation. The boat took off down the street and I chased it, barefoot in a robe. By the time I got to the end of my road, I was being picked up by the police. They took me to the hospital. Lucifer was with me the entire ride. He was attached to me like my shadow. He showed us on a deserted island together and he was trying to procreate with me. I told him no. He kept telling me how much he hated me, but I could tell that he loved me. I saw a half circle in my heart and he had the other half circle. When he aligned his spirit with my body, it showed a complete circle. He wanted it to be a you completely kind of romantic gesture, but I knew better than that. They mind controlled me into like chasing this thing down the street. Like I had no control over. This is how mind control works. You don't have, it takes away your free will and you're not able to do like it's absolutely unbelievable. While I was sitting and waiting to be admitted, I saw the angel boat before me. I saw Brock as a chat head still talking to the angels. He ended up knocking them out of the boat. I had something inside me because baby arms came out from my stomach and had helped him knock over the boat. I saw angels fall to the waters beneath them. I'm hearing that they fudged all my reports. They did. I heard they made up stuff in the hospital to make me sound like there was something wrong with me. The doctors were informed by Orsini to make me look like I was crazy. So this thing that happened when I blacked out and pulling out the chair, that may have never even happened. Because that same doctor told me when I mentioned MK Ultra that I couldn't leave the hospital believing in it. So it's all a big conspiracy. Upon being placed in bed, I began writhing and breathing out all the demons. It was almost like a very low growl that came out of me, too low for anyone to hear. There was a black speck in my throat left there by Brock when we first had hooked up. We had never had sex, and I never hooked up with him after that first encounter prior to the relinquishment spell, but it wasn't... Was it a spell? It was supposedly a spell, but it didn't work. You have to sign it in blood. I coughed it up, and the writhing had gone on for about an hour and a half stopped. As I was lying there, I saw the Illuminati, artists, politicians, and military people piled into an arena. Satan was there, David and Grace. My family was placed in chutes beneath the ground that led to coffins. In the coffins were soul mulchers. David nuzzled his face into Grace's bosom as my family was imprisoned. I saw that I had 3 planets in my womb, and Grace clawed at them to tear them out. They fell onto the floor. I saw my uterus hanging open, ravaged. She was jealous of me as I heard that they were David and my babies, and I knew I wasn't pregnant, so these were metaphysical babies. So Grace had a Lilith in her, is what I came to the conclusion. So that's what I was dealing with. I think I was actually dealing with Lilith and not Grace. They were beautiful green orbs with galaxies in them. They looked much like the marbles with the universes looked at the They looked much like the marbles with universes at the end of Men in Black. I started writing in some kind of fairy language. The words in English were streaming across my brain as I wrote. I tried to give Brock a planet where there was a Katie Gaia for him to pursue to quell him. I didn't even want to do this. It was just programmed this way. New Eden. I hear that Katie Gaia is now ruling the planet, New Eden, and Brock is in prison. So he's imprisoned somewhere. Maybe beneath the earth, something like that. I then saw 3 planets, Heaven, Hell, and Earth. Heaven, earth, and hell. The warlocks kept doing a role reversal, and Brock was being placed above the earth, and I kept going down to the bottom, which was hell. I didn't give away the heavens. They programmed my response to things as thoughts were streaming through my brain rapidly. The government, Nazis, had planned with Lucifer and Satan to take over the heavens. This may not have happened, but it's what I saw. It didn't happen, I'm hearing from the angels. Armageddon was fought on Earth, and this is basically Armageddon. With me reading and getting people to follow me with this, all of this stuff, and listen and understand that this is what's really going on. I remember thinking if there was anyone above me, the heavens would be safe, and before I could change the course of my thought, Brock came into the thought. His initial went above Earth, and my initial went above what I believe was a hell. Something seemed to be functioning through me due to the COVID shots. I saw the heavens stormed by Satan. I saw the celestial beings on a beautiful shoreline get taken over by ship after ship with black dragons on their flag. I stared into the sheets on the bed where it all played out. I sat in horror as beautiful shores of heaven were seemingly overrun, and the people there were left damaged. It all looked like a cartoon, but it was very real. After that, the boats and boats full of angels showed up to where I was. They didn't seem to understand what had happened. I didn't know I was supposed to fight. I kept having to pull metaphysical plugs out of my legs because the Drano was backing up in there. I could feel the heaviness of it flowing through my veins. My blood felt just drenched in detergent. I eventually cleaned out my blood of the Drano and just tried not to panic. I thought that I needed a man to create, his seed, so I began breathing in as hard as I could. At the very least I could get was what was left of those 3 planets that Grace had clawed out of me. I was clutching the blanket in my hands as I saw the fibers in the bedsheet tighten with every one of my breaths. My legs cramped up and my body was sweating profusely. I saw the different dimensions alongside the hospital bed as I breathed in the fabric of reality. I saw the edge of reality as if this was all a board game. I saw Barack Obama and Hillary Clinton begging me to continue as the winds whipped around them. I popped out 3 planets. I think they were limbos, and I made David and Grace and their children a place to live with my family. I developed secondary burns on my hands and feet after this. I saw myself descend into hell as queen. I also saw what seemed like like 2 people go up, and they wanted me to think it was my parents to judge me with a god. And like it was absolutely ridiculous, and whoever it was damning me. People were above me. People were above me in a room judging me with a god. In reality, I don't think anyone was up there. I think they just showed me people up there, so I thought people close to me were against me. I was in a cage and was dipped into hell repeatedly, and my hands and feet turned a purplish red with white speckles. They burned terribly and itched. This was one of 2 times I would be damned for things. With burns. That I didn't have control over doing. They wanted me to think I gave up the heavens, but in reality, if the heavens were given up, it would have had to be done through me. That didn't matter. The heavens weren't given up. It wasn't. They wanted to make me think that they were. It was one of the scariest things I'd ever seen, watching something like this play out. I thought it may have just been time of Satan's time to storm the realm, to be honest. I may have not had any part of it. It wasn't real. Angels? Did that happen? Apparently it may have happened, but not the way I saw it. We won. The good side won. It's the good side won. I spent the entire night creating the universe. When I entered creatorship, this video played in the forefront of my brain that looked like clips of movies that were never made. I had what seemed like a drawing board in the forefront of my brain. I saw someone pop in who was talking about creatorship. He was some sort of director. It seemed everyone was fighting for a godship. I went up and up and up through a series of directors working at a bench in their studios. They were Hollywood directors, and I was in a drawing of a setting. I was this little bee flying through dimensions, asking, "Are you my father?" I went and laid down on one of the writer's shelves, and he covered me with a piece of paper as a blanket, and then tried to crush me with a rolled up newspaper. I kept forgetting that I was God, the one that they had attempted to strip all power away from, and I looked for someone above me constantly as I was being judged constantly. They keep trying to make you forget who you are. These are mind wipes. It's all sorts of technology, insane technology that they have. It's like Men in Black stuff, because there is a video of a woman who encountered the Men in Black. They went into an office and scribbled something down on a piece of paper, and the woman left, and she was never seen or heard from again. I met a woman who claimed to be my mother. She was the woman who owned the witch's shop in the movie The Craft. When I looked out at the setting, we were in Hollywood by the sign, looking out over the city. I knew she wasn't God. These people all just posed as gods while I was elevating myself to great creator. I didn't have to elevate myself to great creator. I am the great creator. And there is a consciousness all around us that's like above me that watches everything. I saw myself placed in a white room with a bed. I felt like I was dead, to be honest. I felt like I had died. I had a girl from my high school visit me in spirit. She told me she worked at the Vatican, but had yet to see God and anything there. Her name was Jenna. She was a bit of a Jesus freak in high school and didn't have many friends. I always listened to her and talked to her when I ran into her in the bathroom. I allowed her into my body and told her all sorts of things to enlighten her soul. When she left me, she thanked me. I later looked her up on Facebook to see if she did in fact work for the Vatican, and she did. I smiled for miles that day as I had enlightened her soul, whether she knew it or not. Orsini showed up afterwards and sat with me. He asked me on a date. I thought maybe I could get some information out of him. And I said yes. Or I was programmed to say yes. I'm not sure. I was programmed to say yes. I was programmed for it. This was the wrong answer. He drained me of my essence, or so it seemed, which was this glimmering pink fluid, and he sullied it. He tried to. It was filthy when I got it back, all littered with witchcraft and dead animals, sacrifices, but I took it back anyways as I felt empty without it. I drank it and was able to filter out whatever he did to it. What was in it? Lint? It wasn't dead animals? It was sacrifices? Yeah, that's horrible. They're talking to me. I can hear I have universal consciousness, so it's constant. I ended up in another room, on another dimension, I should say, because they didn't change my rooms, where there was a baby's blanket on the bed. The blanket had a little hood to keep the baby's head warm. I had an eagle come and visit me there in the window with bars on it. He told me the cure for HIV was in bald eagle saliva. I think there's an enzyme in bald eagle saliva that is the cure for AIDS. He gnashed his beak together, and I put it on my hands to rub the cure on myself. I had heard the Antichrist once tell me to use condoms with David, or I think it was actually my consciousness. And I was afraid he may have given me something because we didn't use protection. And he spent a lot of time in the bathroom on his phone. He said the water helped calm his PTSD. I didn't know if he was talking to other women or moving money or whatever he was doing, but I later did find out that he cheated on me. So, like, this is all things. This is why cheating, I think, in the new world should be you should have to go to training. You should have to go for training, relationship training and trauma training for stuff like this, because it's unnecessary hurt for people. The eagle had said he was going to the Canary Islands afterwards and left me there. He said he was one version of my dad, is what he said to me in one of my lives. But I found out later, I prophesized, I found out later that the Kremlin was moving their money through the Illuminati, through the money of the Illuminati was being moved through the Kremlin to the Canary Islands, where a lot of the politicians' money, the Illuminati money, like the Masonry money, is all being moved through the Kremlin. The Illuminati was funneling a lot of their money through there as well. I got admitted and blacked out for days. This always happened during a possession, and especially because I was in a hospital, as they wanted me to seem like I was in psychosis. I remember seeing David with me. His soul slept next to me in bed while I was there. Grace, or Lilith, should I say, was there trying to do witchcraft on me while David cuddled me. Like, she said there were spiders, there was stuff there. Like, it was pretty scary. But David was there to hold me. David's trying to tell me it broke him when I left. And it was him. He had come to me, not the Antichrist. Matthew McConaughey showed up in a chat bubble. He asked me to be his slave, and he showed me a torture museum of Gaia. Tom Hiddleston then came to me and offered me the same thing, but with a freak show of Gaia. I couldn't believe anyone would actually take an offer like that from these people. They most certainly weren't them anymore. Demons had taken over their consciousnesses. But did people really worship actors like that this much? The CIA showed up, and I had my first crush come out and talk to me. It was his spirit. So supposedly this kid's like stepdad was CIA, and he ended up dying in a car crash, and me and a friend of mine all think, like, we think he might have been a sacrifice. His name was Dominic. So this is like all sorts of stuff this is the type of stuff they do. He had died in a car accident, like summoning souls and things like that. He had died in a car accident when we were younger, but it was his soul I was talking to. I saw the entire hospital go dark, and the zombie apocalypse began outside. In all reality, the zombie apocalypse has been happening for a while. The demons were functioning through people. They offered me a job. When I said no, Warren Buffett showed up with Maya Angelou's spirit, at least I think it was her spirit, to offer me a chateau in France, $300 million, and a pair of shoes that looked like Dutch clogs. There is something about offering shoes. I'm not sure what it is, but the witchcraft associated with the offering of shoes, is a strong spell. Again, I refused their offers. Maya Angelou may have never crossed over, as even she was part of the Illuminati. I had been to Graylin, where her eulogy was held by Oprah for a wedding. That night, I received a spell book of my own, a wand, and a mending kit on the astral plane. I'm being told every time I cast a spell, which is like with symbols, numerology, I now have a bunch of stones and crystals and gems that have harvest power and things like that. Whenever I do that, I am using my wand. Now I can remember looking straight past him because I was in that deep of a possession. The one time I complied with Satan against my will was this time at the hospital. He came to me as a giant black octopus with the head of Desmond Harrington. That he had used that face to approach me with, because I found Desmond Harrington to be slightly sinister looking. I preferred people with softer features, and he knew this. He went down to my crotch and started laser cutting shapes out of my labia, a square, a circle, and a triangle. I felt it a little bit. It tingled and hurt just a tiny bit. Then he came to cuddle me. This is actually the Philosopher's Stone. Those 3 shapes make the Philosopher's Stone, which it means like doing the impossible. He then came to cuddle me, wrapping me up in his tentacles. We had the bed, and we were on a spacecraft that was very cold. We were surrounded by beings in an overcrowded ship. I had to use the bathroom and tried desperately not to step on anyone. It was a reptilian cruiser. When it had descended upon the hospital, the room seemed to get darker. The hospitals had some kind of contract with the government, so when they got spiritual people there, they had them exactly where they wanted them, able to be afflicted even more so by aliens. So I think that hospitals are breeding grounds. They have a contract with the government about there being breeding areas for people, and they try and get certain bloodlines in the hospital to breed with them. Satan held on tightly onto me all night, wrapped up in his tentacles. I wasn't sure if it was because I did what he wanted or because he secretly loved me. Some people have a weird way of showing their love, but he held on to me and he was gone come morning. Loki came into the hospital to battle with me, and I fought him in what looked like a windowless room. It was dark. I swung my mighty sword at his massive, shadowy head, and I wasn't going to give in. He was Tom Hiddleston. He left me there eventually, and I navigated my way back to my room. The thing about finding my room in the hospital was that sometimes it just wasn't there. They were manipulating reality with code, and I would pass where my room was repeatedly, and it simply wouldn't be there. The room numbers would just skip mine, and for the time being, I would have nowhere to go. So Tom Hiddleston also, like, threw me over the hull of a ship and raped me in the vision after he asked me to be his slave, and I said no. And then I was put under the boat, like in the cabin area, and I was left there, and I just stared out at the stars. I ruffled my feathers a lot while I was there, and the staff thought my back was twitching. Stalker Channing asked if she could go inside me, and I said yes, probably against my will as well. She couldn't take me over, which is what I think she was going to try and do. She just couldn't. She thanked me for showing her true innocence and youth when she left me. She told the entities I was pure when she left. I think that Stalker Channing might be Hera. I felt these are like all the demigods and all the angels, and these are like the angels, the fallen angels, like these are in human bodies. I felt the souls coursing through me. I told the nurses that came to question me that I was a soul funnel. I was the original soul funnel and felt all the souls inside moving around me. The nurses had asked me about this while I was there. They let me out with a schizoaffective diagnosis. You know the interesting thing? I was never admitted involuntarily until I met Brock and David. Well, actually, it was first when I met Brock. The stuff with David came later. But I had never been involuntarily admitted ever since then. And anytime I admitted myself beforehand, it was to get my medication because I had run out of Oxy, and it was only once in a while when I really couldn't take the pain and I was depressed from the rapes and I was just downtrodden. But I'll stop there for now, and I will come back with chapter 21 soon. All right, thank you.